Welcome to Video Bites. I'm Ethan Banks with Packet Pushers, and today we've got Clayton Wagar. And Clayton, what's your title over there at Nokia?
I'm a principal consulting engineer in our cloud and enterprise strategy group.
Okay, now you and I have been going back and forth about what we're going to cover in this video, and you're a fellow nerd, man. I can tell. I can see it.
Yeah, a tinkerer, as we say, a tinkerer. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. And some of the things you've been tinkering with are related to artificial intelligence, but AI specifically for network operations. That is, how can we as network engineers use AI in network operations? What can it do? What's it good for? What's it useful for? And you have opinions, it would seem, and are going to show us a thing or two. Yeah,
I do, absolutely. It's a huge topic. Everyone seems to be talking about AI. When you have your parents and grandparents and everybody asking about it, it's got to be something that's going on. And even within our space, AI operations has a number of different facets. You attend shows like AutoCon and you see what people are doing. They're tinkering, right? They're trying to find out how to use this new technology. Certainly a lot of the attention goes to building these giant AI factories, but they're getting more complex, right? And so the operations mandate gets more complex too. Maybe AI helps us solve that.
Well, it's happened fast. You mentioned AutoCon. I mean, I've been to all the AutoCons, and the conversations have shifted very rapidly from automation tooling, orchestration, and what the tech stack looks like to, artificial intelligence is coming in and changing things. And I think on some level, if it meets its ultimate promise, will obviate some of what we've been doing in the automation world. So AI ops is really intriguing to me. I didn't overstate, did I?
No, not at all. I mean, I've been in this for many decades, and I was told early in my career that the sign of a good systems engineer is they want to automate part of their job away. They're a bit lazy, right? So that's why we started with scripting. Then we started with advanced scripting. We went to things like intent-based and autonomous networks. We're leading to some place that makes our job easier. It's not that we want to do the same thing with less people. We want to do more with more people, right? And the fact is that learning all of these sometimes archaic CLIs and all of these methods, building the templated configs and the workflows, this is a lot of kind of drudgery work. Can we take that and make our job easier and get to the fun stuff of building cool networks?
You got to win hearts and minds here, Clayton. I mean, some of us that have CCIE backgrounds are like, yes, but the CLI is that's my value. That's how I do the thing. But it's really going away in the way that AI can abstract those domain specific languages, the iOS and the Junos and all of that makes this really, it feels like there's something exciting and different coming here. Okay. Now, again, I know you have opinions. Can you tell us some of where you're seeing AI operations winning? That is, I'm actually getting value from artificial intelligence and network operations today. It's really helping me.
Well, much like self-driving cars, there are levels of autonomy, right? And there's a formal definition of it. The TM Forum has decided that there is this 0 through 5 level of automation where we start with human sidecar assist, right? Maybe it helps us create playbooks, or maybe it's generating some kind of standard operating procedures for us. Then you work your way up the stack, and effectively at every level in the stack, the system is doing more than the human is. And of course, in the middle part of that, you have humans in the loop at various degrees until you work your way all the way up to completely autonomous networks. Now, I think, is there an example on the planet right now of a completely autonomous network? I doubt it, right? We're not to the level. These things are mission critical. The internet is a utility in the same way water and power is, right? So we're not quite there, but as enterprises, as customers take a look at how they want to walk their way up the stack, they have to see what's comfortable for them. And within Nokia, we've been playing around with different levels at the same time in parallel. We're not trying to make a straight path. We know that people will be ready for different things along a different arc. And so what we've done is take some of our tools and made some fun demos and then some actual products out of AI.
Okay, so so the other keyword I gotta say, Clayton, is this agentic AI, Gen AI. Which flavor of AI are we talking about here?
Yeah, well, look, agentic is the word of the day here in 2025. Really, what that means is we are taking the AI LLMs and giving them the ability to call tools, whether those tools are browsing the web, whether it's calling your Salesforce dashboard, or tools that you've created yourself that are bespoke. And I think that's where the impact will be in AI operations, is having these tools which are very bespoke for the type of jobs that we do as network engineers. Those tools can do things like actually provision the equipment, or they can actually provide some of your rule set. This is how we configure our virtual networks. This is how we configure our routing protocols, right? Because every enterprise is going to be different. So tools are going to be a key to that. And agentic really just means a collection of tools in a workflow.
And the agentic process, or the agents, are actually calling an MCP server to get access to those tools. Is that the typical model you're seeing?
Yeah, today it's all about MCP and A2A as the underpinning protocols. This space moves fast. I don't know if 12 months from now, if we're talking, if there's an MCP2 or if there's an even better protocol. But today we're building on these really lightweight ideas that we just, again, that restful HTTP, it continues to pay dividends, that we're just able to string things together. And not only do we experience it when we're using things like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever your favorite, Grok, whatever your favorite model is, those are tools on the backside that you're using. How do we bring those inside the enterprise and string those together to provide a lot of value?
Yeah, I've also seen demos related to exactly what you're saying, all of those things, and then paired with knowledge that is unique to your environment, your specific network. As you were saying earlier, how we build a VLAN or a VPN or whatever the service is that can give agents the information that they need to, if not go ahead and do it, not give them autonomy to build the thing, at least suggest the way that it should be built.
Yeah, that's right. I think what you're going to see going forward is the quality of the model is really key. So it's very fun to play around with some of these frontier models, and that's part of when we look at the design space. We play with a lot of the frontier models, but within Nokia we also have a robust program within Bell Labs to develop a networking specific model. It's called the Nokia language model. It's available in English. We just did a press release that we also have one in Arabic. This is also a concern. How do we get this knowledge spread out to far and wide across the globe and make it more accessible to a larger workforce? That's a huge key to the success and the growth of networking going forward. This idea that we are going to be somewhere again in late 25, 26, that is a place of perfection, not going to happen. What we're doing as an industry is exploring what we can do with it. And just like we've seen in the past with the rise of broadband, with 5G, with Metro Ethernet, all these other things that happen, we're going to find the best practices start to converge as people start to understand and use this more in practice.
All right, well, let's get a demo. I know you got some fun stuff to show us, and let's bring up a slide. I know you've got a slide that you want to use to explain what we're about to see in the demo. So walk us through it.
Yeah, so what I'm going to show you today, when I talk about exploring the design space. So about 3 or 4 months ago, internally we were talking. We said, what if we didn't try to step up that ladder from 0 to 5? What if we just kind of went to 5? What can we possibly do? Sort of when you're at a party and someone says, "Hey guys, hold my beer, watch this." Like what's going to happen on the other side of that?
So 5 being truly autonomous, right?
5 being truly autonomous,
Okay,
right? I'm going to give it some guidance. I'm going to give it some input. Super fun, but I'm going to let the thing go do it on its own, right? So we're using a couple tools here, and this is what we're using. We've got our EDA tool, which is alongside our data center fabric within Nokia. This is our network automation platform. It's most importantly for the audience here today, it's built on Kubernetes. It was a thoughtful choice that we made to make sure it was deployable within Kubernetes, and has all of the Kubernetes attributes, which you'll see in just a second, make a big deal. Your audience probably knows about Containerlab, digital twin environment, open source digital twin environment. Within Nokia, we use that quite extensively. We're going to be using Containerlab here as our digital twin, as our network. And then I'm going to use a plain model, Claude Sonnet 4. No skills here, no boosting, no training. This is just right off the wire. And in fact, I'm going to use it through VS Code and Copilot so that you can see this is going to be my agent here, right? And if we take a look at how it's plugged together, for those that are interested, we have a couple different things here. Up here's my laptop, VS Code, and I've got my Edge browser. I'm talking to Claude. And then just like you said, we put some MCP servers, some lightweight MCP servers in front of Containerlab and in front of EDA. And they are, when I say lightweight, I mean they're very lightly programmed. And you're going to see exactly what that means in just a minute. So my VS Code agent's going to be talking to these two MCP instances, using them as tools, agentic, as we said. And then I'm also going to switch back and forth to the UI in EDA so you can see how the agent is programming as it does it live.
So for those of you that are watching, EDA, again, is the Nokia automation platform. If you're hearing that acronym, it's not registering in your head what it is. And we've done some videos on that. If you want to see what that is and what that's all about, just look through the Packet Pushers YouTube channel, search for EDA, and you will find some work that we've done there. Okay, Clayton. So I think we got a pretty good idea of what you want to show us in the demo, what the architecture looks like.
All right, well, let's jump in. So as I said before, what you're going to see here is VS Code, right? So I'm inside of VS Code. And I'm just going to go over to my EDA UI. And I just want to show you, I've got a very simple little design here, right? I've got some leaves. I've got a single spine. What's not shown in this diagram, I've got a couple clients hanging off the edge, the little Linux clients inside Containerlab. And what I'm going to do is go through, and I know what my lab looks like in steady state. And so I'm just going to go verify within each of these different configuration areas, bridge domain, bridge interfaces, IRB, routed. You can see I'm going through and I'm understanding that everything is clean, right? Now, one of the great things about EDA is it's completely designed around that Kubernetes idea of namespace, and we can provide labels. So if you think about a giant AI cluster or a giant data center network, right, we can address specific roles within the network configurations, which would be very difficult to do without extensive scripting, almost impossible for a human to do in real time, and do all the configuration using labels. So this is one of the powerful parts of EDA. Now, I'm just showing here the MCP servers we have configured. I've got two of them. Again, one for Containerlab, one for EDA. And I'm going to come over and do what I call priming the pump. So I'm basically, I have some pre-built prompts here. And the first prompt I'm going to give to my agent is go and discover everything that you think you can do with these two MCP servers. I do give it some hinting, right? I want you to discover the resources. I want you to discover the CRDs. I want you to discover interdependencies. But I almost look at this, when I do this demo sometimes, I start talking about this like it's a human on the other side, like I'm a mentor. And I'm telling a brand new junior network engineer, this is how I want you to go through and take a look at all the tasks at hand. So look, this is something that in the fullness of time, this would be preloaded in your model. You would train a model specific for this. But again, this was us saying, what can we do just with what's off the shelf? So here it goes. The agent starts talking to me and it says, I'm going to load all of the things that you've asked me to do. And what you see here, if you're familiar with agentic tool calling, you've used it in an agent before, you see it's going to go through and start to walk step by step through each of the exposed capabilities in the Kubernetes MCP, each of the exposed capabilities within the Containerlab MCP, and it's going to start to get an understanding and put all that together in its mind, right? So I've sped it up here.
Not unlike walking through Swagger for API documentation if you were doing that as a developer.
It's exactly it. I've been around long enough. I'm an MIS major. I don't have a computer science degree, right? So I study databases. And for me, this is great because it's all about dependencies. It's all about hierarchy. It's all about understanding the relationships between different parts of your system. So look, it even has put little emojis in there for us, right? It's telling us everything it knows how to do. It's reporting back like a good little agent and telling us everything that it knows how to do. If you think about this, again, this is very aspirational, but if you think about this, this is something that you could take as sort of a birth certificate as you start a network. You say this, you lay this down in your documentation so that if you have to go back at a point in time, you know what the capabilities were at that point in time. It's not dissimilar to what we do when we commission a network, right? We say this is the steady state, this is what we expect, and this is where we have some drift or some changes in a future state. So now I'm going to ask it to build a pretty simple network from end to end, right? I'm going to ask it to build a virtual network. I'm going to give it some hinting on the bridge domain numbers that I want. I'm going to tell it, because there's some optionality in how you build layer 2 networks, I'm going to give it some hinting on how I want that done. Again, in a production instance, this would be something that we had as part of another tool. Remember, we talked about those preferences that we have as an enterprise, how we like to build things. You could build that into a separate tool so that it knew how to do that. And sure enough, it's going to go off and start to build this virtual network. Again, I've given it zero information about how to do this. It's discovered the methodology on how to do it by itself. And now it's putting that methodology to task. While I'm waiting on that, I'm going to go over and take a look at my digital twin environment. Here's Containerlab. I can see I've got some SR Linux nodes running. I've got some Linux. I'm taking a look at my client on the left. I'm looking for VLAN 300. It doesn't exist yet. VLAN 300 doesn't exist on the right yet, so I know we're clean. Again, this is me double checking its work at this point. And so you can see it's asking me some permission to run these MCP servers. A key part of AI, a lot of the anxiety around it is when is the human in the loop? When are they not in the loop? So here's some checkpointing that we have to understand that it can proceed. And if your audience takes a look
So
here,
just to be clear, you programmatically inserted that sanity check there, yeah?
I did. Well, the agent itself knows that I've given it some guardrails on how often I want it to engage me for a security check. At one
Okay.
point, I do always allow because I feel comfortable with it. But that's if we want to go step by step, that moves us down the autonomy ladder a little bit. But that's okay. That might be where we're comfortable starting with. And so what it's doing through, it's going through and it's configuring just as I asked it to do. Again, I gave it very light hinting on how to do it. It's setting those labels that I talked about with an EDA, so it knows that those labels are significant. It's setting those up. It's talking about the virtual network status. And as it works its way through the configuration of this, it's not only configuring it, it's going back and doing what it's called the smoke test on each of them. It says, I'm going to go back and see if those were configured properly.
Well, okay. So, question for you then: the agent read the MCP server that exposed all of the capabilities, but it didn't give it knowledge on how to do configuration, right? Was it trained in some other way to know how to do the config?
It was not. We asked it to find out the dependencies of each of the units inside of Kubernetes, if you will, each of the resources. So it knows that hierarchy. And so by asking it to do one thing, say create a virtual router, it knows that there's a hierarchy of connectivity below that. Right. This is, I mean, look, I wouldn't unleash, Claude Anthropic Claude on my live network. But I think, again, this is trying to help us, try to pull us to where we could be eventually once we start to tune the technologies, tune the models, tune the agentic workflow together.
No, but how it learned that matters in the sense that a lot of discussion around how you might train a model has to do with here's the body of documentation that we as a vendor have produced. Learn that, and that's going to tell you what you need to know, LLM
right.
or whatever the AI implementation is to actually perform that task. This is somewhat different from that.
That's right. Yeah, and that's you make a great point, which is I haven't trained any of the Nokia documentation into this demo at all. It understood how to do it because it has the intelligence, if you will, to go and do that. Now, we could absolutely make the quality of this process better if we were to go and ingest all of that documentation, and that's a project that's certainly underway to have that quality. You add that along with our business enterprise rules, then you're starting to get to some really high quality output, very low hallucination, ultimately zero hallucination is what we want. We want it to be as robust as the scripting and workflows that we have today, right?
But this is the core without all that other that you just talked about, which is what you'd want to get it to a production ready, we can sell this to customers kind of state. Just showing this is incredible, incredibly powerful what's going on right now.
It's fantastic. And look, I know I have certainly been there. I've probably learned 8 different complex CLIs in my lifetime, all the way from the broadband, the BRAS space back at, in the DSL days, all the way up through core routing and a couple startups that didn't even make it. So I've learned ones that don't even exist in the marketplace. And while I love spending time nerding out, what I love more is sitting back and seeing a network that I built go live and knowing that I'm providing value that way, knowing that, I'm a communications guy. I got into this field because I was a ham radio operator in high school. And I love when things talk to one another. I think it's just magic, And so having the ability to build these architectures in a much more automated way, to me, is really the payoff.
If you did that in high school, that means you learned Morse code to pass that test. You are a nerd.
Oh, you have no idea. Yeah, I did. I'm rusty now, but I got to get better because we have a good friend within Nokia who's doing an expedition. For those of your listeners who know DXpedition, he's doing one. So I got to get my code speed back up. But yes, absolutely. That's right. That's right.
All right. So catch us up in the demo. Where are we at right now?
Yeah, so look, it got done, and it configured my network. It configured my leaves and my spine. But interestingly, it said, well, look, here's how you want to configure the clients for the next step. You should go in and configure the Linux clients yourself. Well, I just mentioned I don't want to spend a lot of time in CLI. And I promise you, this is not a setup. This is just how the demo ended up working. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go check and say, did he configure the client? No, he didn't configure that one, right? And so I'm going to come back over. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to ask it to please configure the clients for me. So we talked about that Containerlab interface that it has. It's been using that to check the configuration of the SR Linux nodes. Now I've just asked it, well, you gave me the configuration. You should go do that, right? So here it goes. It's going to go ahead and apply those configurations right to those Linux hosts within Containerlab and get those interfaces running. And then again, it's going to do a smoke check, connectivity test 2-way, by the way. It doesn't assume that one way is good, because I think everyone's been burned by that before. but it's going to do a two-way communication check between each of them, and then again give us an output here that shows that it thinks everything is proper. Finally, as you could expect, I'm going to come over here and take a look at my clients, and my test here is that it has a 301 interface, VLAN 301, which means I know that it's been properly configured, and I'll end up doing a ping test between the two. So look, a simple connectivity test between two ends, but the fact that I didn't give it, to your point, any documentation, any guidance, other than go discover what you can find out from these two pre-existing non-bespoke pieces of software. The EDA instance and the Containerlab instance that we've used here were right off of the web that any one of your listeners can go and get and try for themselves on their laptop right now. So there we go. You can see inside the EDA UI, it also shows and reflects that each of those things is done. And then, spoiler, so we don't have to watch everything, I then ask it to clean up the lab afterwards and return it to steady state, so the next time I do one of these things, it's ready to go. So look, I got a home lab right underneath me here. I do some AI model training, but look, I love spending time in CLI, but it is really cool to see these things come together so quickly. And look, it's not just about a simple network like this. The key is that because these networks are getting more complex, because agentic AI in all of these new AI infrastructures that we're building is going to make them much more complex in terms of storage, in terms of checkpointing, in terms of live web transactions. These networks are getting extraordinarily complex.
Complexity has been where historically me as a human configuring whatever the complex stack of things was, usually it's a stack of things that you got to put together, and there's a lot of dependencies, and whether it's specific routes that need to be in place, or you're thinking about MTU on an interface, or whatever it is that it takes to deliver that product, it's easy to make a mistake. It's easy to fat finger something or to miss something, even if you've templated everything very carefully. You're telling me that AI at this point is going to do better with that complexity than I am?
It's going to do it at least faster. I don't know about better. I think that gets to the quality of the model. Okay. But look, this is you're exactly where I want people to think, which is I've unleashed this at the boundary, the frontier of what we want to show, which is do the configuration for me. But look what it's been doing along the way. It's been checking its work. So if you simply use this tool and step a couple levels back in the autonomous framework and say maybe it's human configuration, maybe it's our existing automated configuration framework and monitoring, but now I have some sort of impairment that I want to check, some sort of, there's a problem in the network. It can then go through and make those checks all the way through the network. Again, I don't know how anyone else goes and checks MTU sizes on 15 interfaces in a row, but I'd rather have AI do it than me, right?
So, okay, so do you see the AI that we've just seen here? This feels like augmentation. This is helping me get the job done more quickly. There's probably going to be a little bit of error reduction because I have less opportunity to fat finger things, but it doesn't replace me. It just gives me the ability to get something done more rapidly. Yeah, I'm going to sanity check things. Yeah, I'm going to look at stuff, but I didn't have to build it all out myself. Do you think that's the end game? Or is the end game, like if you're looking down the road a few years here, models improve, let's assume, and MCP2 comes out, whatever it is, do we get to true autonomy where at some point we're like, I don't even care about the configuration code. I don't care about what Yang models it interface to pull this off or whatever, and we just let it do the thing? Where's the line going to be?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think that if you look at some of the leading lights in this space that have talked about where they are, and there's Bikash at Google has talked about this quite a bit. They are at a point where the network will do a lot of the healing itself, and then their SREs can actually sit back and look at the problem statement after it's been healed. I think that they will always have humans in the loop because we understand the business requirements. We understand how to take the things that our enterprise needs to do and make that real in terms of communication infrastructure. I do think what it will do is take away a lot of the drudgery of the work. If you want to jump into command line, go ahead and do it. What I think it does is it completely expands our ability to scale. Right. I do think that having humans in the loop will be here for a very long period of time. The fact is that what's the phrase? Less happens within 2 years and more happens within 5 years than you expect. So it's difficult to say what happens outside of that 2-year window. What I know is I can see here through this demo, through other things that I've seen in the industry. Again, I mentioned AutoCon. What a fabulous show for people to go and learn about some of the state of the art and the practical of what's being done. I think what you'll see is that this human assist means a lot more to us right now than they might think. Are we going to get to truly autonomous networks? That's a great question. I'm not sure I'm a prognosticator, so I'm going to defer your question. I'm going to dodge a little bit, Ethan. But
I don't have an answer either. I'm just curious what you thought. I've seen some really interesting demos, but they've been very solution and environment specific, where someone's telling a story that they had this very specific thing they needed to accomplish on their network that was taking way too much time every time they ran into a particular situation. So they trained with the help of AI and then built an application to pull that off, and it solves a problem for them. But it wasn't, we built an AI platform that's now Skynet and it is running the entire network for us. No one's talking about that at all. It's all about either augmenting an engineer or building a very specific tool that happens to be important to their business and workflow.
yeah, you're exactly right. And I think that there's tremendous amounts of business value in the first two things there, right? Augmenting the engineer and understanding how to take the next step into something that makes us, something that gets us during business hours. No one likes to be up at night solving problems at 2 a.m. How can we get to a point where it really allows us to have this as more of a natural workflow? It's complete autonomous network, Skynet. I don't know, man. Perhaps I'll be retired by then, but it's I feel like humans will always be in the loop. Just like with self-driving cars, you might say, well, you got self-driving cars now that don't need a human in the driver's seat, right? But guess what? They're driving humans, right? They still serve us, and that's the key to the whole thing, right? Is that they're still serving us.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Well, Clayton, this is cool. Thanks for showing what can be done. I'm having a few of these conversations with different mad scientists that are working with AI tools and showing what can be done. Only it's starting to feel less and less like crazy science to me and more like, no, this is happening. This is real. And it's time to start diving in and getting a sense of what it can do and what it can't do and how it's useful. So if there's people that are watching this and they want to start playing around with some of this stuff, you guys at Nokia have some resources, right?
We do, and I do appreciate you letting me come on and show you some of my mad scientist stuff. It's a lot of fun to work on, and I always love when people get to see it and the look of wonder on their face. It's the same every single time. People think it's really cool. I think your audience knows a lot about Containerlab at containerlab.dev. They can go and download that. It's available just a GitHub pull away, and you can start playing with a digital twin environment with not only Nokia operating systems, but a lot of other vendors have chosen to participate there. And then EDA itself, you can go play with EDA at eda.dev, eda.dev, and you can install that. I run it on my MacBook. It's pretty lightweight, and it has a digital twin environment built in if you don't want to hook it up to Containerlab, but they can take a look at what all the excitement is about there and how a Kubernetes built network platform is built.
Okay, guys, so head up to Nokia if you're interested in this, and build yourself some AI stuff, and ping me if you build something crazy and got your own mad scientist thing you want to show me. Would love to chat with you and maybe record a video. And until then, we'll see you over at Packet Pushers, packetpushers.net.